For decades, Bobby Womack carried the weight of his relationship with mentor Sam Cooke, a relationship that would define his career, tarnish his reputation, and ultimately reveal something profound about both men. What really happened in those final days before Cooke's tragic death? And why did Womack wait until his 70th year to finally speak the words that would change everything we thought we knew? The story begins in the sweltering heat of Chicago's South Side in 1955. Sam Cooke, already a rising star with the gospel group The Soul Stirrers, first encounters a skinny 11-year-old kid named Bobby Womack. Bobby and his brothers have formed a gospel group called the Womack Brothers, and they're determined to catch the ear of anyone who matters in music. Sam Cooke matters more than most. At 24, he's gospel's golden boy, handsome, charismatic, with a voice that makes grown women weep in church aisles. "I saw how the women looked at him," Womack would later recall. "I wasn't thinking about Jesus then. I was thinking I wanted what Sam had." What Sam had was the world on a string. By 1957, he makes the controversial leap from sacred to secular music, leaving the Soul Stirrers to pursue pop success. It's a move that shocks the gospel community but reveals Cooke's ambition and business acumen. He doesn't just want to sing, he wants to own. By 1959, Cooke establishes SAR Records, becoming one of the first black artists to create his own label. He signs the Womack Brothers, renames them the Valentinos, and becomes their producer, mentor, and gateway to secular success. For young Bobby Womack, Sam Cooke isn't just a boss, he's the blueprint. Bobby studies Sam's every move, how he phrases lyrics, how he controls a room, how he navigates the treacherous waters of a music industry built to exploit black talent. Bobby watches as Sam creates a publishing company to retain ownership of his compositions. He observes Sam's marriage to Barbara Campbell in 1959, the birth of their daughter Tracy, and the devastating loss of their 18-month-old son Vincent, who drowns in the family swimming pool in 1963. Through it all, Cooke maintains the smooth, controlled demeanor that makes him marketable to white America while delivering songs like "A Change Is Gonna Come" that speak directly to the pain and promise of black America during the civil rights movement. He cultivates the perfect image, successful but not threatening, soulful but sophisticated. By 1964, Cooke is not just a singer, he's an enterprise. His record label is thriving. The Valentinos have released It's All Over Now, co-written by Bobby Womack, which will soon be covered by the Rolling Stones and become their first #1 hit in the UK. Cooke's own career is reaching new heights with hits like Another Saturday Night and Shake. At 33, Sam Cooke seems untouchable, a man who has transcended the limitations placed on black artists of his era. Bobby Womack, meanwhile, is 20 years old, talented but still in Cooke's shadow. He plays guitar on Cooke's recordings, watches and learns, but hasn't yet stepped into his own spotlight. The relationship is clear. Sam is the master, Bobby the apprentice. Sam is the established star, Bobby the hungry up-and-comer. Sam is the businessman with the beautiful wife and the perfect house in Los Angeles. Bobby is still trying to find his place. But on December 11th, 1964, everything changes. Sam Cooke is shot dead at the Hacienda Motel in Los Angeles under circumstances that would remain controversial for decades. The official verdict, justifiable homicide. The hotel's manager, Bertha Franklin, claims Cooke assaulted her after he became violent with a woman named Elisa Boyer. The case is closed with suspicious speed, but the questions linger. For Bobby Womack, Sam Cooke's death isn't just the loss of a mentor, it's the first domino in a sequence that will define the rest of his life. Here's where the story takes its first dark turn. Just 77 days after Sam Cooke's funeral, Bobby Womack marries Barbara Campbell, Cooke's widow. Bobby is 21, Barbara is 29 with a young daughter to support. The music world reacts with shock and disgust. Bobby Womack, the protege who played guitar at Cooke's funeral, is now sleeping in his mentor's bed, wearing his clothes, driving his cars, and raising his daughter. "I was young," Womack would later tell interviewers. "I didn't think about how it looked." But others certainly did. Etta James reportedly spits in Womack's face when she learns of the marriage. Sam Cooke's brother Charles threatens Womack's life. Radio stations refuse to play his records. The Valentinos fall apart. Seemingly overnight, Bobby Womack transforms from promising talent to music industry pariah. The marriage lasts until 1970, producing a son named Truth and a cloud of suspicion that would hang over Womack's career for decades. Did he pursue Barbara while Sam was still alive? Was there more to Cooke's death than the official story? And perhaps most damaging of all, was Bobby Womack's interest in Barbara Cooke ever about love, or was it about stepping into Sam Cooke's life? The reality behind the mask both men wore was far more complex than the public narrative suggested. While Cooke cultivated an image of the smooth soul singer with crossover appeal, court documents and police reports from the night of his death paint a different picture. According to these records, Cooke had been drinking heavily at Martoni's restaurant in Hollywood earlier in the evening. He reportedly left with Elisa Boyer, whom he had just met, and checked into the 3-per-night Hacienda Motel around 2:30 a.m. Boyer later claimed Cooke had kidnapped her and that she fled the room fearing sexual assault, taking most of Cooke's clothing with her. She allegedly took refuge in the manager's office, leading to the confrontation that ended in Cooke's death. Many of Cooke's friends and family never accepted this version of events. They pointed to inconsistencies in the testimonies. The fact that Cooke was found nearly naked with substantial cash still in his wallet, and the swift closure of the case without thorough investigation. Conspiracy theories flourished, suggesting everything from a mob hit to a music industry plot to a racially motivated killing covered up by authorities. Bobby Womack, who had been so close to Cooke, never publicly challenged the official narrative during those early years. Instead, he stepped into the void left by Cooke's death in the most literal way possible, by marrying his widow and becoming a father figure to his daughter. "I moved into Sam's house," Womack later admitted. "I was driving Sam's cars. I was even wearing Sam's clothes because we were the same size. I never stopped to think what that looked like to people." The contrast between image and reality extended to Womack himself. While publicly presenting as the devoted protege honoring his mentor's legacy, his actions suggested something more complicated. Perhaps a young man seizing an opportunity, perhaps genuine affection for a widow in distress, or perhaps something darker that wouldn't come to light for decades. The marriage was troubled from the start. In addition to the public condemnation, there were private struggles. Barbara was grieving. Bobby was trying to salvage his career while living in the shadow of the man who had made that career possible. And hovering over everything was Sam Cooke, his legacy, his tragic end, and the questions that remained unanswered. "People thought I knew something about Sam's death," Womack told interviewers years later. "They thought that's why I married Barbara so quick. But I didn't know anything. Or maybe I didn't want to know." By the late 1960s, the facade was crumbling. Womack, unable to find success as a solo artist due to the controversy, turned to session work, playing guitar for artists like Aretha Franklin, Sly Stone, and the Gabor Szabo, with whom he recorded the instrumental Breezin' that would later become a hit for George Benson. Behind the scenes, his marriage to Barbara was deteriorating, marked by arguments, infidelity, and the growing presence of drugs. The final blow came when Barbara discovered Bobby in bed with her daughter, Linda, Sam Cooke's stepdaughter. Though Womack maintained the encounter was not sexual and that Linda had developed an infatuation with him that he had not encouraged, Barbara believed otherwise. She ended the marriage with a shotgun, firing at Womack as he fled the house. The bullet grazed his head, leaving a scar but sparing his life. The physical wound would heal. The damage to his reputation would not. The mask was off. Bobby Womack was no longer seen as Sam Cooke's loyal protege, but as a man who had betrayed his mentor's memory in the most profound ways possible. And yet the full story, the words that would reshape our understanding of both men, remained unspoken, locked away in Bobby Womack's mind for decades to come. 1970 marks Bobby Womack's lowest point. Divorced from Barbara Cooke, ostracized by much of the music industry, and struggling with the beginnings of a drug habit that would nearly destroy him, Womack seems finished before his career has truly begun. The promising young guitarist who once stood beside Sam Cooke is now a cautionary tale. Talent squandered by poor choices in the shadow of scandal. But Womack refuses to disappear. Working with producer Chip's Moment in Memphis, he records his breakthrough solo album, Communication, featuring the hit That's the Way I Feel About Cha. The album showcases Womack's gritty voice, masterful guitar work, and a songwriting ability that had been overshadowed by the scandal of his personal life. I had to reinvent myself, Womack later explained. I couldn't be Sam's boy anymore. I couldn't be Barbara's husband. I had to be Bobby Womack, whoever that was. The album's success opens doors that had been firmly shut. Suddenly, the music matters more than the man's past. Throughout the early 1970s, Womack builds a formidable catalog with albums like Understanding and Facts of Life, establishing himself as a soul music powerhouse in his own right. Songs like Woman's Gotta Have It, Harry Hippie, and Across 110th Street become R&B staples. Yet even as Womack rebuilds his career, the specter of Sam Cooke remains. In interviews, he's inevitably asked about his former mentor and the circumstances of their connection. Womack develops a standard response: respectful, appreciative, but carefully avoiding the deeper questions about Cooke's death and his own subsequent choices. "I learned everything from Sam," becomes his mantra. "He was the greatest." It's a true statement, but far from the whole truth. The real Bobby Womack, and what he knows about Sam Cooke, remains hidden behind a new mask, that of the successful solo artist who has transcended his controversial past. Success brings its own demons. By the mid-1970s, Womack's cocaine usage has escalated from recreational to compulsive. The drug becomes his constant companion, fueling marathon recording sessions and easing the guilt that continues to plague him. His brother Harry, the subject of his hit Harry Hippie, is stabbed to death in 1974, sending Womack into a deeper spiral. On stage, Womack remains electrifying, a showman in the tradition of Sam Cooke, but with a rawer edge. His 1976 album BW Goes C&W shows his versatility as he tackles country standards with soul sensibility. But behind the scenes, cocaine and alcohol are taking their toll on his health, his finances, and his reliability. "I was running from something," Womack would later admit. "Every time I thought about Sam, about Barbara, about all of it, I'd do another line." The 1980s bring commercial decline, but creative triumphs. Womack appears on Sly Stone's recordings and collaborates with Rolling Stones guitarist Ronnie Wood. The Stones, who had their first major hit with Womack's It's All Over Now, remain loyal supporters. In 1981, Womack releases The Poet, an album that revitalizes his career, particularly in Europe, where he achieves the recognition that often eludes him in America. Throughout this period, the questions about Sam Cooke occasionally surface. Journalists probe, fans speculate, but Womack maintains his careful narrative. Cooke was his mentor, his musical father, the man who gave him his start. The more complicated truth remains buried, seemingly forever. "There are some things you carry to your grave," Womack told a reporter in 1985 when pressed about Cooke. The reporter had no way of knowing how close Womack had come to that grave through his drug use, or how the weight of unspoken words contributed to his self-destruction. The 1990s represent a dark period for Bobby Womack. His drug addiction reaches its peak, leaving him broke despite his catalog of hits. His health deteriorates. He battles diabetes, pneumonia, and the effects of years of substance abuse. Concert appearances become erratic. Recording opportunities dwindle. The man once positioned to inherit Sam Cooke's mantle is now fighting simply to survive. During this period, Womack retreats from public view. He works sporadically, often relying on European tours where his fan base remains loyal. In America, he's increasingly viewed as a relic of a bygone era, his contributions overshadowed by newer soul and R&B stars. "I became a ghost," Womack recalled. "Sometimes I'd look in the mirror and not recognize the man looking back at me. I'd think, what would Sam say if he could see me now?" The question of Sam Cooke, what he would think, what he would say, what he truly was beneath his polished exterior, continues to haunt Womack. As he fights his way back from addiction in the late 1990s, entering rehabilitation programs and slowly rebuilding his health, the unspoken truth about his relationship with Cooke remains buried, a secret Womack seems determined to take to his grave. But life has other plans. As a new century dawns, Bobby Womack finds himself approaching his 60s with renewed purpose. Sobriety brings clarity. Surviving when many of his contemporaries have not brings perspective. And slowly, the need to speak the full truth about Sam Cooke, to correct the record, to unburden himself, begins to grow. The unlikely catalyst for Womack's second resurrection comes from an unexpected quarter. The world of hip-hop. In 2001, producer Dante Ross samples Womack's Across 110th Street for a Missy Elliott track. The following year, filmmaker Quentin Tarantino uses the original song in the opening credits of Jackie Brown. Suddenly, a new generation discovers Bobby Womack. This renewed attention coincides with Womack's improved health and clarity. Clean from drugs, he begins recording again. He's inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2009, a long overdue recognition of his contributions to American music. Rolling Stones guitarist Ronnie Wood delivers the induction speech, acknowledging the debt the Stones owe to Womack for It's All Over Now. At the ceremony, Womack performs Across 110th Street with conviction and power, showing that his voice, though weathered, retains its emotional impact. Standing on that stage, recognized at last for his own achievements rather than his connection to Sam Cooke, something shifts in Womack. Getting into the Hall of Fame made me think about legacy, Womack later said, about the truth and what people remember. I started thinking that maybe I needed to tell the whole story before it was too late. The whole story, the unvarnished truth about his relationship with Sam Cooke, about what happened in those final days before Cooke's death, about the reasons behind his marriage to Barbara, begins to press on Womack's consciousness with new urgency. As he enters his 70th year in 2014, battling cancer and the early stages of Alzheimer's disease, the need to speak becomes undeniable. "I always thought I had time," he told a close friend. "Now I realize I don't." In 2012, another unexpected resurrection occurs in Womack's career. Damon Albarn of Blur and Gorillaz fame reaches out, inviting Womack to collaborate on a new project. The result is The Bravest Man in the Universe, Womack's first album of new material in nearly 2 decades. Co-produced by Albarn and Richard Russell, the album pairs Womack's weathered voice with electronic soundscapes, creating something both contemporary and timeless. The album receives critical acclaim, introducing Womack to yet another generation of music fans. At 68, he is suddenly relevant again, touring with Gorillaz and performing for audiences who weren't born when he married Barbara Cooke. This renaissance provides the platform for what will come next, the revelation that will change how we understand both Bobby Womack and Sam Cooke. During the recording sessions for The Bravest Man in the Universe, Womack begins to open up to Albarn and Russell about his past. The conversations often turn to Sam Cooke, his influence, his business acumen, and gradually the darker aspects of their relationship that Womack has never publicly addressed. Bobby would start talking about Sam, and you could see this weight he was carrying, Russell later recalled. It was like he was practicing, trying out the words he'd kept inside for so long. The album includes a track called Please Forgive My Heart, a raw confession that many interpret as Womack's apology for past transgressions. While he doesn't explicitly mention Cooke in the lyrics, those close to the project understand the song's subtext. As Womack promotes the album through 2012 and 2013, the questions about Sam Cooke inevitably arise. But now, approaching 70 and facing his own mortality, Womack's responses begin to change. The carefully constructed narrative starts to crack, and in a series of interviews in late 2013 and early 2014, Bobby Womack finally speaks the truth that reshapes our understanding of both men. Sam wasn't who everyone thought he was, and neither was I. With these words, spoken to journalist Barney Hoskins in February 2014, Bobby Womack begins the confession that he's withheld for nearly 50 years, fragile but clear-eyed, battling cancer and cognitive decline, but determined to set the record straight. Womack reveals the complex, troubling reality beneath the myth of his relationship with Sam Cooke. According to Womack's account, documented in interviews with Hoskins and several other journalists in the final months of his life, Sam Cooke's smooth, controlled public image masked a man capable of manipulation, exploitation, and violence, particularly toward women. Womack describes witnessing Cooke's infidelities, his volatile temper, and his controlling behavior toward Barbara. "Sam could be the sweetest man you ever met," Womack said, "and then something would switch, and he'd be someone else entirely. I saw him hit Barbara more than once. I saw him threaten people who crossed him. The Sam Cooke that people remember, that perfect, smooth soul singer, that wasn't the whole man. Most shockingly, Womack reveals that his relationship with Barbara Cooke began before Sam's death, with Sam's knowledge and, in a disturbing twist, his tacit approval. According to Womack, Cooke had mentally and emotionally abandoned his marriage long before his death, pursuing numerous affairs while keeping Barbara isolated in their Los Angeles home. "Sam told me once, 'You take care of her when I'm gone,'" Womack recalled. "I didn't know if he meant when he was on tour or something else, but he knew there was something between us. Maybe he even encouraged it. It was like he was grooming me to take his place in more ways than one." This revelation cast the events following Cooke's death in an entirely new light. The hasty marriage that scandalized the music world wasn't simply an opportunistic grab for Cooke's widow and wealth, as many had assumed. Nor was it merely a case of a young man comforting a grieving widow. It was the continuation of a complex, morally ambiguous relationship that had developed under Cooke's roof, with dynamics of power, loyalty, and betrayal that Womack had never fully acknowledged even to himself. Regarding the night of Cooke's death, Womack offers no definitive answers to the enduring questions about what really happened at the Hacienda Motel. He maintains that he had no direct knowledge of or involvement in the events of December 11, 1964. But he does reveal that Cooke's behavior in the months leading up to his death had become increasingly erratic and self-destructive. "Sam was spiraling," Womack said. "The drinking was getting worse. His business decisions were getting stranger. It was like he was trying to destroy everything he'd built." "When I heard how he died, in this cheap motel, with this woman no one knew, it made a kind of sense. Sam was running from something." Perhaps most poignantly, Womack acknowledges the weight of guilt he's carried throughout his life, not just for his relationship with Barbara, but for his failure to speak the whole truth about Cooke for decades. "I protected his image because I thought that's what I owed him," Womack explained. "He gave me my start. He taught me everything. But keeping those secrets, it ate me alive. It's why I turned to drugs. It's why my life went the way it did. I couldn't live with the truth, but I couldn't live with the silence either." In his final interviews, Womack presents a nuanced view of both Cooke and himself. Neither villain nor saint, but complex men shaped by the racial and social realities of their time, capable of both remarkable achievements and profound failures. Sam created a path for Black artists to own their work, to build businesses, to cross over without losing themselves, Womack emphasized. That's still true, no matter what else was going on behind closed doors. And me, I made every mistake a man could make. But I'm trying to leave this world with the truth, not more secrets. Bobby Womack died on June 27, 2014, just months after his revelations about Sam Cooke became public. The music world mourned the loss of a soul legend while grappling with the implications of his final testimony. His candor in those last interviews forced a re-examination of both men's legacies, a process that continues today. The initial reaction to Womack's revelations was mixed. Some fans and music historians dismissed his account as the ramblings of a dying man trying to justify his own controversial choices. Others, particularly those who had known both men personally, found Womack's version of events credible, noting that it explained behaviors and patterns that had long puzzled them. Barbara Cooke, who had remarried and largely retreated from public life, declined to comment directly on Womack's claims. In a brief statement released through a representative, she acknowledged only that those were complicated times and that Bobby had his truth, I have mine, and Sam took his to the grave. Sam Cooke's surviving family members, including his brother L.C. Cooke, vehemently rejected Womack's characterization of Sam as volatile or abusive. "My brother was a gentleman," L.C. told journalists. "Bobby Womack is trying to rewrite history to make himself look better." Etta James, who had once spat in Womack's face over his marriage to Barbara, but had later reconciled with him before her own death in 2012, had previously made statements that partially corroborated Womack's claims about Cooke's private behavior. In her 1995 autobiography, Rage to Survive, James described Cooke as one of the greatest singers who ever lived, but also noted that he had another side that could be manipulative and frightening. Music. Journalists and biographers have continued to investigate Womack's claims, seeking additional sources to either confirm or refute his account. Peter Gorelnik, whose 2005 biography, Dream Boogie: The Triumph of Sam Cooke, is considered the definitive work on Cooke's life, acknowledged in subsequent interviews that Womack's revelations add a complicated but important layer to our understanding of a complex artist. The re-examination of Cooke's legacy has extended to the circumstances of his death, which had long been the subject of conspiracy theories. While Womack offered no definitive alternative to the official narrative of what happened at the Hacienda Motel, his description of Cooke's self-destructive behavior in the months before his death lends credibility to accounts that Cooke had been drinking heavily and acting erratically on the night he was killed. For Womack's own legacy, the revelations came too late to significantly reshape public perception during his lifetime. His place in music history remains defined by both his remarkable musical contributions and the controversy surrounding his marriage to Barbara Cooke. However, posthumous assessments have increasingly recognized the complexity of his position as a young man caught in the orbit of a powerful and flawed mentor. Since Womack's death, several documentaries and books have explored his relationship with Cooke, incorporating his final testimony into a more nuanced understanding of both men's lives and legacies. Netflix released Reframed: The Many Lives of Bobby Womack in 2019, featuring extensive excerpts from his final interviews alongside commentary from music historians and contemporaries. The documentary presents Womack as a man who spent his life trying to escape from Sam Cooke's shadow while simultaneously trying to honor his memory. In 2021, scholars at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame established the Womack-Cooke Archive, dedicated to preserving and contextualizing the musical and personal legacies of both artists. The archive includes recordings, correspondence, and oral histories from those who knew them, creating a resource for future researchers seeking to understand the complicated reality behind the public personas. Today, both men's music continues to resonate. Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come remains an anthem of the civil rights movement, while Womack's Across 110th Street continues to find new audiences through samples and film placements. Their musical legacies transcend the complexity of their personal relationship, even as our understanding of that relationship continues to evolve. In the music industry today, the revelations about Cooke and Womack's relationship have contributed to broader conversations about how we separate artists from their art, how we contend with the flawed humanity of cultural icons, and how power dynamics shape relationships in the entertainment world. Contemporary artists from Beyoncé to Kendrick Lamar have cited both men as influences, acknowledging their musical contributions while navigating the more complicated aspects of their legacies. Frank Ocean's 2016 album Blonde includes several sonic references to both Cooke and Womack, suggesting that younger generations of artists are finding ways to incorporate their musical innovations while maintaining a more clear-eyed view of their personal complexities. Music critics and scholars continue to debate the implications of Womack's revelations, with some arguing that they fundamentally alter how we should understand Cooke's work, particularly songs like Bring It On Home to Me, that take on new meaning when considered in light of his reportedly complex and sometimes troubled relationships with women. Others maintain that the art can and should be appreciated independently of the artist's personal failings. What remains undisputed is the musical brilliance of both men. Cooke's pioneering fusion of gospel, pop, and R&B that created the template for soul music, and Womack's raw, emotionally direct approach that bridged soul, funk, and country in ways that continue to influence artists across genres. In a final poignant note, Womack's son Truth, his child with Barbara Cooke, has emerged as a keeper of both men's legacies. Now in his 50s, Truth Womack has worked as a music producer and archivist, helping to preserve and contextualize his father's catalog while also acknowledging the complicated relationship that led to his own existence. "I'm literally the product of this story," Truth said in a 2020 interview. "My mother was Sam's wife. My father was Sam's protege. My half-sister was Sam's daughter. There's no way for me to separate myself from any of it. All I can do is try to honor the truth, both the beautiful parts and the difficult parts. Soul music has always been about truth. Emotional truth, spiritual truth, the truth of the Black American experience. Both Sam Cooke and Bobby Womack created music that resonates because of its authenticity, its willingness to confront reality in all its pain and possibility. Yet both men lived lives where truth and facade were constantly intertwined, where public personas masked private complexities, and where the stories they told, and the stories told about them, often diverged from the messy reality of their experiences. What Bobby Womack's final testimony offers is not a simple villain or hero narrative, but a reminder that human relationships, especially those shaped by the extraordinary pressures of fame, race, and artistic ambition in America, resist such easy categorization. Cooke remains a pioneering figure who created pathways for Black artists' autonomy and success, even as we now understand he struggled with personal demons that complicated his relationships. Womack remains both the talented protege who dishonored his mentor's memory and the truth teller who finally provided a more complete picture of that mentor's reality. Perhaps the most profound lesson from this tangled history is that our cultural icons are not the smooth, perfect narratives we create about them, but complex individuals navigating impossible contradictions. The music endures not despite these contradictions, but in some ways because of them. Because the emotional truth of soul music comes from that very human struggle between our best and worst selves. The Bobby Womack and Sam Cooke story reveals how thin the line is between mentorship and manipulation, between loyalty and betrayal, between public persona and private reality. Do you think we should separate the artist from their art? Or does knowing the full story change how you hear the music? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this exploration of soul music's hidden history resonated with you, hit subscribe for more deep dives into the complex stories behind the songs that shaped our world. The truth is always more complicated and more interesting than the legend.